In the glittering skyline of San Francisco, where billion-dollar ideas floated on startup dreams and elevator pitches, one company towered above the rest. Ardent Technologies, known for its ruthless innovation and a CEO who made headlines more for his audacity than his kindness. Ardent was both feared and revered. At just 38, he was worth over $4 billion. He had built Ardent from a tiny AI consultancy into a global powerhouse. But Brandon was infamous for his arrogance, bluntness, and twisted sense of humor. He didn't just fire employees, he made games of it. Humble, quiet, and never one to ask for favors, Carlos had kept his daughter's application anonymous. Her name, Elena Rivera, 21 years old, a junior at Stanford studying computer science, holding down 3 part-time jobs to support her education. Her mornings began with tutoring, her afternoons in class, and her evenings cleaning apartments or delivering groceries. He once replaced an entire design team for failing to wow him in a pitch meeting. That CEO, Brandon Wells, was a man of extremes. Elena wore a blazer from a thrift store and shoes that had seen better days. One afternoon, she skipped lunch to work on a feature no one had assigned. A senior engineer noticed and said, "You don't need to do that." She stepped into the elevator with a dozen other interns, all from Ivy League schools, dressed in designer brands and flashing confidence like currency. "If I don't, no one will." So when he overheard that the company Janitor's daughter had applied for the Ardent Summer Internship program, he smiled. Brandon leaned forward, intrigued for the first time in years. When it would shadow the CEO for a month. "Let's bring her in," he told his assistant with a grin. "Could be entertaining. An AI that predicts critical infrastructure failures and emergency trends before they happen. It doesn't just save costs, it saves lives." Then Elena walked in. She plugged in her laptop, cleared her throat, and presented. The janitor, Carlos Rivera, had worked the night shift at Ardent for almost 12 years. She had no idea she had been accepted as a joke. Her first day at Ardent was a blur of nerves and determination. Elena kept showing up, kept asking questions, kept building. She never lost her focus. Then she found a security loophole in their client portal, a loophole a team of senior engineers had missed. By the end of the internship, Elena had filed 2 provisional patents and built a beta version of Phoenix that the city of San Jose agreed to pilot. Over sushi and green tea, he asked, "Do you think I'm a bad person? I think you forgot what it's like to start with nothing." Brandon watched her from his office monitor. "Let's see how long she lasts," he muttered. "But the joke's on me, because she just changed the future of this company." While others competed for attention, Elena quietly built a prototype for a predictive AI model designed to optimize emergency response systems. It was personal. Her mother had died waiting for an ambulance that arrived too late. He began reading her code, marveling at how elegant and purposeful it was. For the first time in years, he felt inspired not by profits or power, but by potential. She had spent nights in college libraries poring over open-source datasets and building simulations. The pain of that loss fueled her every line of code. But Elena wasn't just another intern. She arrived early, stayed late, and asked the questions no one else dared to. "You're too smart to be doing that," he said. Elena's quiet resilience began to stand out. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was simply driven. "I want to," she replied without lifting her eyes. 2 weeks into the internship, Brandon held a surprise hackathon. Interns were asked to pitch an original tech idea. The room buzzed with rehearsed pitches and flashy presentations. "This is Phoenix," she said. By the end of her 8-minute pitch, the room was silent. "Where did you get the data set for this?" he asked. "I built it," she replied. She won the hackathon, and the shadowing began. At first, Brandon tried to throw her off. He gave her impossible tasks, sarcastic remarks, and intentionally left her out of meetings. 3 weeks in, she redesigned part of Ardent's search algorithm, improving its efficiency by 14%. Brandon was no longer smirking. He found himself staying late just to see what she'd do next. One late night, he found her in the break room, fixing a jammed printer. She smiled. "My dad taught me not to walk past a problem just because it is not in your job description." Something shifted in him. He began mentoring her genuinely, pulling her into high-level strategy meetings, even letting her pitch in front of investors. Brandon even invited her to dinner one evening, something he had never done with an intern. Elena paused. That night, Brandon stared at the skyline longer than usual. On the final day of her internship, Brandon held a town hall. "When Elena came here, I brought her in as a joke," he confessed to a stunned audience. He offered her a full-time position. She paused, then said, "I'd love to accept." after I finished school. 2 years later, she returned to Ardent as head of innovation. In her first week back, Elena led a project that integrated AI diagnostics into emergency health service 2.0. This version could detect epidemic patterns and dispatch aid with near-perfect accuracy. The city of Los Angeles became its first official partner. Within 6 months, Phoenix 2.0 was deployed in 5 major cities across the US, and emergency response times dropped by 32%. International agencies took notice. Elena was invited to speak at tech summits and policy. Brandon stepped down as CEO the year after, and to the board's unanimous vote, Elena Rivera took his place, the youngest female CEO in the company's history. At her first company-wide address, she looked out at the crowd, because every opportunity, no matter how it starts, is what you make of it. Someone once gave me an opportunity as a joke. I took it seriously. Her father, Carlos, watched from the front row, tears in his eyes. He stood in the back, clapping the loudest, and Brandon Wells. She launched the Rivera Fellowship and Internship program for students from underrepresented backgrounds. Her speech received a standing ovation, not just for the depth of its insight, but for its heart. "I'm from the Bronx. My mom is a janitor. I never thought someone like me could do this. You made me believe. Sometimes, you just have to show up and never give up." The program didn't just offer a resume boost. It offered mentorship, financial support, and real-world experience. He always began with the same story about the janitor's daughter who humbled him. Employee satisfaction soared. Partnerships with non-profits and education groups grew. Elena initiated annual coding boot camps for girls in underfunded districts and offered Ardent cloud services free to humanitarian organizations. Epilogue: a legacy built from grace. Her father Carlos finally retired, though she had to insist he never wanted to stop working. As Elena settled into her role as CEO, she made major changes at Ardent. Fans would quote her line, "Don't walk past a problem," as a motto of resilience. Under Elena's guidance, Talia co-developed an app that connected displaced teens with emergency housing and community resources. Like, no one sees your effort, your potential. But trust me, your grit matters, even when it's quiet, even when it's doubted. Especially then. When interviewed, he said, "I only ever cleaned floors. My daughter, she cleaned the path forward for others." Elena was listed among Time's most influential people for 5 consecutive years. The plaque read. The app went viral and was adopted by over 30 municipalities across the US. One of the first Rivera Fellows was a high school senior named Talia, who had grown up in foster care. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones destined to lead us. And sometimes, what begins as a joke becomes a revolution. Brandon, now retired, served as a senior advisor to social tech startups and often gave lectures titled "The Leaders You Never Saw Coming." Elena remained grounded. She ate lunch in the staff cafeteria, joined junior engineers for brainstorming sessions, and kept a small framed photo of her parents on her desk. Years later, Elena stood at the United Nations Innovation Summit, where she delivered a keynote on ethical AI and inclusive tech ecosystems. Standing at the same window she had once looked out of while studying by moonlight, she addressed students. After the summit, a young girl approached her with tears in her eyes. Elena knelt and said, "You don't have to be born into power to change the world." That moment went viral. In interviews, Elena often credited her success not to talent or intelligence, but to humility, work ethic, and the belief that no act of kindness goes unnoticed. Ardent Technologies under her leadership became a benchmark for purpose-driven innovation, and the Rivera name became a symbol of perseverance and impact. Years later, Elena authored a memoir titled Unexpected CEO, My Journey from Janitor's Daughter to Tech Leader, which became a bestseller and was adapted into a Netflix limited series. A scene from the series where young Elena fixes the jammed printer while speaking to Brandon for the first time became iconic. She founded the Rivera Institute for Ethical, which funded global research in responsible machine learning practices and technology inclusion. Carlos Rivera, now enjoying retirement in a small coastal town, received the city's Lifetime Contribution Award. One day, Elena returned to her old Stanford dorm to give a surprise talk. "Some of you may think you're invisible." That talk became a TEDx feature. At Ardent's 30th anniversary, a bronze statue was unveiled at headquarters, not of Brandon, but of Carlos Rivera, mop in hand, eyes full of quiet pride. Dedicated to the ones who work in silence and raise the ones who change the world. Moral of the story: never underestimate quiet determination.